أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم ولعن أهلك أعداءهم أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أسعد الله أيامنا وأيامكم جميعا. Peace and blessings be upon you all, dear brothers and sisters, and all praise to Allah the Almighty, and all grace and all praise indeed and all thanks to Him, that He grants us these opportunities where we are able to hold these gatherings. Inshallah, today we will be celebrating the birth anniversary of the Lady of Light, Salamullahi alayha, and in order to start this program, I will request my dear brother Miqdad Huda to start with the recitation of a chapter from the Holy Quran. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألهاكم التكاثر حتى زرتم المقابر كلا سوف تعلمون ثم كلا سوف تعلمون كلا لو تعلمون علم اليقين لترون الجحيم ثم لترونها أين اليقين ثم لتسألن يومئذ عن النعيم صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. That was our dear brother Miqdad Huda, who was reciting the chapter from the Holy Quran, starting this majlis, this milad, this mahfil. Inshallah, we'll proceed with the recitation of Surah Al-Yasin, and I'll request my dear brothers, Brother Parvez and Brother Elias Sarisi, to inshallah recite Surah Al-Yasin. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشر مغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاء المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون. وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون. وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون. أتخذ من دونه آلية إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون. إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين. إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون. قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين. وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين. إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون. يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون. ألم يروا كم أهلكناها قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون. وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وآيات لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون. سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون. وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم. والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون. وآيات لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين. وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون. وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين. وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين. ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون. ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم يرى الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشاها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. These were our younger brothers, Brother Elias Alisi and Brother Pervez, who were reciting this Surah Al-Yasin. And now, inshallah, I'll request my dear brothers, Brother Miqdad Huda and Brother Yusuf Rahmand and Brother Ali Mahboubi to start with the recitation of Dua Kumail. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي قهرت بها كل شيء وخضع لها كل شيء وذل لها كل شيء وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباقي بعد فناء كل شيء وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء يا نور يا قدوس يا نور يا قدوس يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحت كل اسم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النقم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تقطع الرجاء اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أظلمت وكل خطيئة أخطأتها اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفئ بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك وأن تلهمني ذكرك اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع أن تسامحني وترحمني صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانيا وفي جميع الأحوال متوازيا اللهم واسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد هاجته وعزم فيما عندك رغبته اللهم عزم سلطانك وعلى ما كانوك وخفي مكروك وزهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك اللهم لا أجد لذنوب غافرا ولا لقبائه ساترا ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي ظلمت نفسي ظلمت نفسي وتجرعت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم الذكرك لي ومنك علي اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترته وكم من فادهم من البلاء قلته وكم من عثار وقيته وكم من مكروه دفعته وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرته اللهم عزم بلائي وأفرت بسوء حالي وقصرت بي أعمالي وقعدت بي أغلالي وهبسني النفع بعد أملي وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بجنايتها ومطالي يا سيدي فاسألك بعزتك أن لا يحجب عنك الدوائي سوء مالي وفعالي ولا تفزحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكسرة شهواتي وغفلتي وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا وعلي في جميع الأمور يتوفا إلهي وربي من لي غيرك أسأله كشف زري والنظر في أمري إلهي ومولاي أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي ولم أحترف فيه من تزيين عدوي فغرني بما أهوى وأسأله على ذلك القذى فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعد حدودك وخالفت بعض أوامرك فلك الحمد علي في جميع ذلك ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاؤك والزمني حكمك وبلاؤك وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا مستغفرا منيبا مقرا مذعنا معترفا لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك أزري وإدخالك إياي في ساعة من رحمتك اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ظلمي وفكني من شدي وثاقي يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عزمي يا من بدا خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي هبني لابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي يا إلهي وسيدي وربي تراك معذب بنارك بعد توحيدك وبعد من توى عليه قلبي من معرفتك ولا هجابه لساني من ذكرك واعتقده ضميري من حبك وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضيا لربوبيتك هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تزيء من ربيته أو تبعد من أدنيته أو تشرد من آويته أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته
ورحمته وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي تسلط النار على وجوه خرت ليزامتك ساجدا وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقا وبشكرك مادها وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققا وعلى زمائر هوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة وعلى جوارها سأت إلى أوطان التعبد كطائية وشارت باستغفارك مسئلا ما هكذا ظنوا بك ولا أخفئ ولا أخبرنا بفضلك أنك يا كريم يا رب وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدين وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهله على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكسور يسير بقاء قصير مدة فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض يا سيدي فكيف لي وأنا عبدك ضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي لأي الأمور إليك أشكو ولما منها أذج وأبكي لأليم العذاب وشدة أمر طول البلاء ومدته فلا إن سيرتني للعقوبة مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك وهبني صبرت على هر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إليك إلى كرامتك أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي يفوق فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لن تركتني ناطقا لا أذجن إليك بين أهلها ضجيج الآملين ولا أصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين ولا أبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين ولا أنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين يا غاية آمال العارفين يا غياث المستغيثين صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين ويا إله العالمين أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفتي وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته وهبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته، وهو يضج إليك ضجيج مؤمل لرحمتك، ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك، ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك يا مولاي، فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك ورحمتك؟ أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك؟ أم كيف يحرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه؟ أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفا؟ أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقا؟ أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا ربه؟ أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها؟ هيهات ما ذلك ظن بك، ولا المعروف من فضلك، ولا مشبح لما عملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك، فباليقين أقطع لولا ما هكمت به من تعذيب جاهديك وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما، وما كان لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما، لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين، وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين، وأن تجل ثناؤك قلت مبتدعا وطولت بالإنعام متكرما. أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حكمتها وهكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبته وكل قبيح أسررت وكل جهل عملت كتمته أو أعلنت أخفيته أو أضحرت وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جواره وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم وبرحمتك أخفيت وبفضلك سترت وأن توفر حظي من كل خير أنزلت أو إحسان فضلت أو بر نشرت أو رزق بسطت أو ذنب تغفر أو خطأ تستر يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي يا من بيده ناصيتي يا عليما بضري ومسكنتي يا خبيرا بفقره وفاقتي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب أسألك بحقك وقدسك وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورا وبخدمتك موصولا وأعمالي عندك مقبولا حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا وهالي في خدمتك سرمدا يا سيدي يا من عليه معولي يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي. يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب. قو على خدمتك جواره، واشدد على العزيمة جوانه، وهبني الجد في خشيتك والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك، حتى أصلح إليك في ميادين السابقين، وأسرع إليك في البارزين، وأشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين، وأدنو منك دنو المخلصين، وأخافك مخافة الموقنين، وأجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين. اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرد، ومن كادني فكد، واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك، وأقربهم منزلة منك، وأخصهم زلفة لديك، فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك، وجد لي بجودك، واعطف علي بمجدك، واحفظني برحمتك، واجعل لساني بذكرك لهجا، وقلبي بحبك متيما، ومن علي بحسن إجابتك، وأقلني عثرتي، واغفر زلتي، فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك، وأمرتهم بدعائك، وضمنت لهم الإجابة. فإليك يا ربي نصبت وجهي، وإليك يا ربي مددت يدي، فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي، وبلغني مناي، ولا تقطع من فضلك رجاي، واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعداي. يا سريع الرضا، يا سريع الرضا، يا سريع الرضا، اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء، فإنك فعال لما تشاء. يا من اسمه دواء، وذكره شفاء، وطاعته غنى، ارحم من رأس ماله الرجاء، وسلاهه البكاء. يا سابغ النعم، يا دافع انتقام، يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام، يا عالما لا يعلم، صل على محمد وآل محمد، وافعل بما أنت أهل. وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله، وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أسعد الله أيامنا وأيامكم جميعا. All praise to the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who grants us these opportunities. Alhamdulillah, brothers and sisters, we are celebrating this beautiful, beautiful event in history, the birth anniversary of the Lady of Light, As-Sayyida At-Tahira Fatimah Al-Zahra Salamullahi alayha. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And we convey these felicitations and greetings to the Prophet and his blessed progeny and to the Imam of our time, Ajjalallahu Farajahu Sharif, on this auspicious occasion. And extending these felicitations to all fellow brothers and sisters across the globe who have been commemorating. Indeed, the holy shrines have been decorated, have been adorned with this beautiful, beautiful birth. Inshallah, I'll proceed and thanking my young brothers who have participated in these recitations. May Allah have special mercy on these beautiful voices and on their respective parents and all the fellow brothers and sisters across the community. May Allah shower His blessings, His numerous blessings upon all. Mentioning my young brothers, Brother Miqdad Huda, Brother Parvez, Brother Ilyas Alizi, Brother Yusuf Rahman, Brother Ali Mahboubi. Inshallah, brothers and sisters, we will have our respected Sayyid Mohammedhassan al-Sheraa who will be addressing today's milad, today's mahfil. I'd like to recite a few poetic verses as this is a beautiful, blessed event that we celebrate. And before I do, inshallah, also mentioning this as it has been mentioned on numerous times that any of these young brothers or brothers or any of the elders would like to recite anything in any language, they can send an email to kwshiaevents@gmail.com and inform them that they would like to recite. And as mentioned, there's no bound on any type of language in the sense that you can recite recite poetry or dua that you wish to, inshallah, as we do on these Thursday nights. Without any further delay, inshallah, starting with this poem that has been penned by Sheikh Mohammedhassan Mohammedhassan, who writes this as the poem as the birth of Batul, salamullahi alayha. The dwellers of the heavens did this day applaud, for verily her pleasure is that of Almighty God. The sun and moon smile with magnanimous elation, for by her they are providences of illumination. She is the light by which divine mercy is decreed, for she is the substance within the courtyard of Tawheed, the axis of the orbit of existence in its simplicity. By her descent was initiated all of multiplicity. By her the earth and heavens did the Creator cleave, and within her did He the divine mysteries weave. Were I to sit and about her wonders ponder, mad I'd become whilst in infinity I'd wander. Mother to her father and matriarch of a nation, love and loyalty to her the means of expiation. For the diadem of prophethood she is its crown jewel. To the ovation of angels born today was Batul. For the diadem of prophethood she is its crown jewel. To the ovation of angels born today was Batul. Salamullahi alayha. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. May Allah accept these acts of worship that we have put forward in this night for the sake of the Lady of Light, that He inshallah increases our opportunities, such opportunities, and accepts these acts of worship and showers His numerous blessings upon all, especially with the opportunity to have her ziyarah, her visitation in this world, and her shafa'ah, her intercession in the next. Without any further delay or ado, I'd like to request our respected Sayyid Mohammedhassan al-Sheraa to address this ihtifal, this mahfil. Milad. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم ولعن أعدائهم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. أفضل الذكر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد حبيب إله العالمين أبا القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وآل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. سماحة Sheikh Shafiq, my dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, and all the mu'mineen and mu'minat celebrating this auspicious occasion, I bid you all Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
My wholehearted congratulations are extended to Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman and all the lovers of Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam on the anniversary of her birth. Today marks a day in which a smile has now been present on the blessed face of Rasulullah. Angels rejoicing, and indeed the kingdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in a state of bliss and tranquility. The anniversary birth of Lady Zahra salamullahi alayha is no ordinary event, for it is one that inculcates miracles, one that hosts events of turmoil yet celebration, moments of grief yet felicitation. For indeed, when we look at the earlier years of the life of Sayyidah Zahra alayha salam, there's no looking beyond the turbulent situation and circumstances that the early Muslims were going through. And in the midst of all of this, you had the birth of one of the radiant lights of Ar-Rahman, Lady Zahra alayha salam. To set the scene better, it is incumbent to understand what were the circumstances that ultimately Lady Zahra was born to. Of course, there's no exaggeration when we describe the backwardness, the misogynistic and racist society of the pre-Arabian Muslims at the time, 7th century, pre-Arabian Peninsula. And indeed, you had an economy based on kufr. We, alhamdulillah, may not necessarily totally have an economic structure completely based on disbelief. Versus back in the Arabian Peninsula, what is now referred to in the English language, wathanism, al-wathaniyya, to believe in idolatry, was not only the world religion to the early Arabs at the time, but also the number one commodity that would excel their economy. And so money revolved around kufr. Behavior revolved around kufr. To treat those who were different to you revolved around acts of extreme disbelief, whether it was racist or racism, because racism, brothers and sisters, is an act of kufr. Many don't realize that. The first of these kuffar was shaitan. Kufr from the word inkar, juhud, to reject what God told you to accept. The first to reject amongst these orders was shaitan. Under what basis? Oh Allah, I do not desire to bow down to Adam even after you have ordered me to do sujood facing him. Why? For I am better than him. خلقتني من نار وخلقته من طين. The first racist was shaitan. This is an element of kufr, disbelief. Racism is satanic. These Arabs were, back in the 7th century peninsula, were the kings of racism and the kings of misogyny and putting down and undermining women to any degree. In that atmosphere, God's greatest messenger had a daughter. To keep it into consideration that there are a plentiful amount of ulama that describe Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam already having had children. This is something contested between certain books of literature or certain opinions of researchers, historians, such as Al-Tabarani, or we look at from the Shia world, from the various muhaqqiqeen, amongst them Al-Mufid, that either Rasulullah had multiple daughters, yet not necessarily ever getting that spotlight, or he only had one daughter, Lady Zahra alayha salam. Nonetheless, it doesn't deter or elevate any status of either the Prophet or Lady Zahra alayhi salam, whether he had multiple daughters or not. Many will describe them being the daughters of Sayyidah Khadija's sister Hala, that Rasulullah adopted after she had lost her husband. And these were children who were raised in the house of the Prophet. They go by the names of Zainab, Kulthum, and Ruqayya, the daughters of Rasulullah. There is no doubt, however, that either the youngest of these or the only girl of these, according to whichever opinion from the historic context one might espouse was Lady Zahra alayhi salam, and the greatest of these, the daughter of a Sayyida Khadija salamullahi alayha. Another area of dispute, just so that we're able to set the scene and have a bit more clarity and light shed from an historical context in order to really appreciate something as we are gathering here today, appreciating the magnanimous event, truly magnanimous. Allah didn't have to. Allah just, with His infinite rahmah and mercy, gave us the guide that is Lady Zahra alayhi salam. To greatly appreciate that, it's best to know, it's paramount, part and parcel, brothers and sisters, to understand what were the circumstances like. Why was that necessary? Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam, many will disagree in the time, day, year of her birth. A majority of our brothers and sisters from other schools of thought, though are not Shia, will espouse the view that Lady Zahra was born about 5 years before the bi'tha of the Holy Prophet. So 5 years before the Prophet publicly announces Islam and the mission begins, starting from that day on Ghar Hara, Jabal al-Nur, in the year 611 AD, or of the Common Era. 5 years before that, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had already given birth to Sayyidah Zahra. This is an opinion that is accepted widely by our Sunni brothers and sisters. Then you might have the alternative opinion espoused by the Shia view, the followers of the Ahlul Bayt, in that Lady Zahra was either born 5 years after the announcement of the mission of Islam. Al-Shaykh al-Mufid is the exception, who states that she was born 2 years after. And there is a group of historians that suggest no, her age is the age of Islam. So that same year of Bi'tha, that same year, so when was it? It was Rajab 27, that year 611 AD, within that year, not necessarily the same day, but that year she was born. So the common understanding is that it's any time after the announcement of the mission of Islam. These are opinions that are espoused by us. Why does it make any difference? It makes a couple of significant differences. When was she born? Was she born 5 years before, a year, 2 years after, the year of the mission of Islam, or 5 years later? So just to make it clear, the majority of scholars from the Shia worldview accept that she was born 5 years after the mission of Islam, meaning that by the time of her martyrdom, she would be 18 years old. And if you were to suggest that she was born 5 years before, then all you would have to do is simply add 10, which would make her about 28 years old. This is significant. Why? Because in the first year of Islam being publicly announced by the Holy Prophet ﷺ, we had a series of events that occurred which had the Holy Prophet ascend to the heavens. These are called the events of Al-Mi'raj. The event of Al-Isra was the journey from Mecca to Al-Quds, Masjid al-Aqsa, Al-Aqsa Mosque in modern-day Palestine. Al-Isra and Mi'raj, Isra happened only once. Rasulullah traveled to Al-Quds, Masjid al-Aqsa, modern-day Palestine, only once in his blessed life. Allahu A'lam, perhaps there may have been other occurrences, but in recorded history, once. Al-Mi'raj, according to multiple books of literature and ahadith, multiple times. Asharat, tens of times. There's a specific number given. It is not found in my mind right now. Around 100 or so, above 100, just a little bit above. In any case, Rasulullah ascended to the heavens multiple times. In there, he would conduct meetings and gatherings with the angels, with the other prophets of God that have left, with the realms and dimensions of heaven, would observe hellfire, would see what would happen, would run into the angel of death. These are wonderful moments that are very fascinating. Many might see them as bizarre, and that's why there are those who have ran to the view that this cannot be an actual experience. That's why some from Ahlul Sunnah would accept that no, this was just a dream. No way could you see like a man going here and there, then back to heaven, communicating with this person, that prophet, that angel. This is too much to accept. Therefore, some might espouse the idea that, this is just a dream. The Prophet didn't actually go. Whereas in the school of Ahlul Bayt, we accept that no, Rasulullah, why is it too difficult for Allah to take him to heaven himself physically? So Rasulullah would be there. There are 3 references from our brothers and sisters in other schools of thought that highlight to us the following event. That when Rasulullah in al-Tabarani, in al-Tarikh al-Baghdadi or al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, and in al-Hakim al-Nayshaburi's work, these are 3 historians. These are prominent historians that we as Shia also reference in matters of historical context, not necessarily take as a canonized, authentic work, but reference for historical contexts. So you see some scholarship from the worldview of Ahlul Bayt would look at these references because these are early historians or historians that had access to early manuscripts. In any case, these 3 compendiums of events of history during the life of the Holy Prophet record to us the following. That Rasulullah, when he went to heaven, he consumed from the heavenly fruit that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala advised him to consume from. There was, one might imagine a tree or a lush plant of some sort, and in it or within it, a fruit that it had, and Rasulullah approached and he consumed from this. Imagine like an apple, let's say. And Rasulullah consumed from that. After that event, Rasulullah descended back to the earth. One beautiful observation is when asked, what is the most bone-chilling miracle of the Holy Prophet of Islam? Is it the Quran? Is it the events that deal with ma'ajiz takwiniyya, worldly miracles? He heals this guy, he fixes this guy's eye, he foretells the future with knowledge from the unseen, ilm al-ghayb, let's say. What's the most extraordinary, miraculous event? Not necessarily the journey, al-Mi'raj, to heaven, although that is very amazing and epic, but not the journey to, the journey back down. How could you leave heaven with all its glory and pleasures and luxuries, just let go of Jannah and come back down to Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab and Abi Sufyan and Ikramah and all these riffraffs that just bother you and harass you and call you names, hurtful names and words of abuse, and even abuse the Holy Prophet. Physically, they would harm him, have children casting stones at him, so he is not able to retaliate because they're kids. And if he retaliates, these are the children of Ta'if, or Thaqif rather. And if he retaliates, it'll look bad, unbefitting. Why are you getting mad at kids here? Ya Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. So it was just a horrible time to be. And your followers being persecuted. You leave Jannah and you come down for this. That must mean you have the strongest irada, the strongest willpower, unmatched by none. No one can match Rasulullah's willpower. The final destination for all of our struggles and strife is heaven. Yet you leave it to come down and struggle some more. I imagine many of us, I know I would be like, you know what, Ya Allah, I'd rather stay. Since I'm here anyways, why am I going to go back down? Isn't the final goal to be here? But Rasulullah, as true as the ayah of the Quran is, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. We've sent you to be but a mercy to mankind, and they still need you, Ya Rasulullah. And so Rasulullah is that manifestation of the mercy to all of man and womankind, all the worlds and realms, comes back down from heaven after having done what though, brothers and sisters? Consuming from the fruit, from the produce, from the product of heaven, divinely fruit. When he comes back, again, whether this was 2 years after the announcement of Islam, 5 years after the announcement of Islam, or actually within the year of the announcement of Islam, he then conceives Lady Zahra salamullahi alayha with the Sayyidah Khadija, and she is born the result of the fruit that he consumed from heaven as well. And so that leads many to describe Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam amongst her noble titles, Hawra'ul Insiyya. Al-Hawra'ul Insiyya. Insiyya means human, definitely, person. Hawra is the title form of what? Hur. You guys have heard of Hur al-Ain, the heavenly beings that live in heaven, women that live in heaven, that reside in heaven. The Hur al-Ain, the very pure, from light creations of Allah that dwell in heaven. As-Sayyidah Zahra, this is to indicate that she is of heavenly origin. That Lady Zahra alayhi salam, because of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa making it to the heavens, consuming from that, the origin of Lady Zahra actually rather is of a heavenly origin. Hence her title, Hawra'ul Insiyya. Al-Hawra'ul Insiyya. Why would many propose that rather she wasn't born after Islam? She was born before Islam, because if you state she was born before Islam, then there is no event of Mi'raj and significance of what he ate there that highlights to us the heavenly divine or the heavenly origin of Lady Zahra. There's nothing special about that. That's why many will state, no, she was born before Islam. Well, the evidence might not necessarily substantiate that, to be frank. Above the fact that when you add the qara'in or the presumptions together, they do seem to suggest that she was born either within the time frame of the announcement of the religion of Islam or just a couple of years after that. That being said, brothers and sisters, you had from that moment Sayyidah Zahra to be born. To be born. What went on was, because Rasulullah by these years had announced Islam, had made his efforts to help those see and be enlightened of the message of Islam, he was faced with embargoes and sanctions from Banu Quraysh, and to whom all those who had either direct or indirect association with Rasulullah. So either direct association, meaning the Muslims who were there, or indirectly the Ashira, the family of Rasulullah, albeit a few aristocrats, like Abu Lahab, for example, the uncle of the Holy Prophet, was not subject to these embargoes. What are these embargoes? We all have heard of how the Prophet was subject to economic sanctions by Banu Quraysh and all of the aristocrats of Mecca, such that he was excommunicated and exiled from Mecca, him and his followers, his wife, his soon-to-be son-in-law Amir al-Mu'mineen, and the very few Muslims that were there, including the close members of his family from Bani Hashim, and 40 members from the aristocrats of Mecca made that agreement and pact. We will not support, we will not buy from them, we will not sell from them, nor will we intermarry from them. No one will go to help them, and they will not be able to leave their location. And this is what happened. And they were excommunicated where? To the valley of Abu Talib, Shi'ab Abi Talib. The valley of Abu Talib was a land a little bit outside of where now modern day Masjid al-Haram is. So outside of the sanctuary that surrounds the Kaaba, there was this nice open field. I wouldn't even describe it as nice, to be honest, just this field exposed, nothing really built there, that was owned property of Abi Talib, the uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the father of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And Abu Talib, being himself the patriarch of Bani Hashim, was, even though highly in support of Rasulullah, was still given more flexibility than any other member of Bani Hashim. Why? Because he was the one liaison between Rasulullah and Quraysh. He was the one person that can communicate back and forth. They would talk to him. He's the elder. He's what you would describe as Ra'is al-Ashira. He is the chief of the tribe of Bani Hashim. And on top of that, he's really very well respected, and he's the custodian of the Kaaba. Okay. What then happened in this situation was, because these events were happening, leading up to these events, people noticed that they're going to boycott the Muslims, that even those who were not involved, decided to stay away from supporting Rasulullah at the beginning of the message of Islam. This led to a difficult situation for when it came time to give birth to Sayyidah Zahra. As Sayyidah Khadija lost all of her closest friends and all support that she could have. Not a single wet nurse available, not a single nurse, pediatrician, any lady would not muster up courage to go and help a poor lady give birth. It's a difficult time as it is anyways, for those who had already had children, experience what that's like, or understand what it takes to go through. You truly will never be able to understand the difficulties of that situation unless you've gone through it or you firsthand experienced it. You want support. You want the aid. And there's a very heaviness, aside from just the pain, the overwhelming anxiety, even depression that follows it, and to see that no one cares to help you because of your association and support to your husband, it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lion's heart to still maintain your morals and principles. One word could have helped her. No, actually, I don't support. I don't believe in his way. Yet she was firm and steadfast, as Sayyidah Khadija alayhi salam. And because all these women abandoned her, every single one didn't want her, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent, and this is found in authentic sources from our worldview. We don't care what everyone else has to say. We concern ourselves with our material. We are the followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And that Allah sent the souls of Lady Maryam alayhi salam and Lady Asiya bint Muzahim alayhi salam, in that they would come and help Sayyidah Khadija during this difficult time of labor. And they would help her and assist her when all abandoned her. And then she gave birth to a Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam. Allah sent the most righteous of women to help the mother of Fatima Zahra give birth. Then the news came to the Holy Prophet that you had now been blessed with a daughter. Rasulullah made his way quickly to go and receive his blessed daughter, and he definitely the first to take her and recite in her blessed ears the adhan and the iqamah. And Rasulullah began reciting various supplications, and he made it very clear to Sayyidah Khadija, because there was this trait that when you give birth to a girl in that society, it's not something you should look up to, not something you should look forward to. Because look at how society treated women. Baby girls were buried alive. And there was that taboo, and there was that hatred and the venom that society had towards women. And to Rasulullah, this was his greatest moment of joy. He looked at Sayyidah Khadija and he said to her, stating that, "Be happy, my beloved wife. If there is even a moment of sadness in that you had given birth to a daughter." Of course, Sayyidah Khadija was never sad. Sayyidah Zahra comforted her, even in ways where we would not understand. Before she gave birth to Sayyidah Zahra, traditions indicate that Sayyidah Khadija would speak to her while she was in her womb, and she would make clear that Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam would respond back to her in a manner that only she understood clearly, that she would converse with the child. And in fact, these are recommended behavior. This is a recommended type of behavior to have, and that there's already a type of communication, a love, a relationship that the mother shares with the daughter. And Sayyidah Khadija constantly would be doing this. We're mentioning the dhikr of Allah, the tasbihat of Allah, reciting the Holy Quran towards her blessed child. And the child would then comfort her back in very spiritual ways that we will never be able to conceive and understand. Rasulullah made it clear that this should never come across as a moment of difficulty, considering we have now a daughter. Rather, a daughter is amongst the biggest blessings. And you will not find traditions that highlight the love for a daughter from anyone more than the Holy Prophet of Islam. How much he loved his daughter. It's something amazing and beautiful. May Allah bless all the fathers and mothers who have daughters. For Rasulullah showed love to his daughter and tried his hardest to teach us how you should love your daughter. Of course, this is Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam. So it's not just any random person, but it's still by default a daughter, and a blessing in the house is the daughter. So Rasulullah would often be seen kissing a lady, Zahra alayhi salam, would stand when she would enter the room and give her his seat, would kiss her blessed hand, and he is Khatamun Nubuwwah. And Rasulullah would make it a very clear point. Love your children, especially your daughters, for they are going to be your keys to heaven. And the young children, truly, because of their innocence and no religious obligations expected upon them, because of not having reached that maturity yet, so they're not obligated to pray anything, they are ma'soomeen in that sense. They're pure, they're innocent. Their record is clean, they don't have any sins. And so someone whose record is clean, brothers and sisters, of course they're children, so they'll goof around, they'll play around, they'll behave in awkward ways, this is fine, but they don't have any sins. Therefore, if you can, try to get your children to make prayer and dua for you, for the prayer of the sinless is always answered. Now, how do you get your child to sincerely pray for you? That's something you have to figure out. But nonetheless, Rasulullah taught us this beautiful lesson. And so Rasulullah followed this with the next line stating that, and from her we will have the greatest progeny to have ever existed. From her, the greatest progeny to have ever existed will come through her and only her. Part of the hikmah, God, and only God knows why, that Rasulullah's other children from the boys died in their birth. From the girls, if we consider them the daughters of Rasulullah according to other opinions, didn't have children that lived on. Part of the wisdom why Rasulullah, when he had his son Ibrahim or Qasim, when he had these children, some would say to another child, Tahir, Ibrahim, Qasim, Tahir, they all died in their infancy due to illness, is that Allah, Wallahu A'lam, only wants Rasulullah's progeny and lineage to continue through Lady Fatima and Ali ibn Abi Talib. The rest will not be able to continue. And of course they go where? Straight to heaven, straight to Rabbul Alameen. And so Rasulullah made this clear. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala highlighted in the Holy Quran from how joyous an occasion this was, an entire chapter was revealed. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar fasalli li rabbika wanhar inna shani'aka huwa al-abtar. We have given you al-Kawthar. A ton of tafasir will come. Kawthar doesn't mean a river in heaven. Doesn't at all make sense considering the context, metin, the ruh of the entire surah. It conflicts. Al-Kawthar, a river in heaven, but then it concludes different from how it began. And Shanika huwa al-abtar. Your lineage is rather the one that will be cut off, abtar. The discussion is best sought and understood when we examine it from the tafasir of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt and righteous ulama trying to find the actual exegesis and explanation of this following verse. Al-Kawthar, one derivative of kathir or kawathir, an abundance. We've given you an abundance, Ya Rasulullah. An abundance of what? One will look at it, your lineage will be a lot, because Rasulullah was subject to a lot of negative comments saying, oh Prophet, not even Prophet, oh Muhammad, you don't have any kids, and the kids you do have, they all die in their infancy. So, and this is a trait that the earlier tribalistic Arabs would be very happy to say, I have a lot of children. Al-Banoon, and the Quran talks about Al-Malu wal-Banoon zinatul hayat ad-dunya, to have a lot of kids. And Rasulullah, you don't have any kids? And that's very fun. That's rather sad. It looks like it's a hit to your manhood to not have any kids, and the kids you do have, all they die. So one will look at this and state, well, eventually Allah gave him a lot. Kathir, and na'tinak al-kawthar. If Allah wanted to say that, He could have just said, we gave him a lot. Kathir. Kawthar is specific. First of all, it's in the feminine. Secondly, there are other ways to say talaq, kawathir, kathir. There are other ways to describe the abundance. Kuthra. And what does Allah say? Alhaakumut takathur. Although this has no connection to this, but takathur, another term. Al-Kawthar was specifically used, and the Quran is extremely subtle. The tradition describes it as such, that Rasulullah was given Lady Zahra as his one child to carry on his lineage. And even if that's the case, a girl is not something back then the pre-Arabian Arabs would ever be proud of to have. So, a girl, who cares? You don't have any sons. Allah responds, I gave him al-Kawthar. Who claimed this? Al-As ibn Wa'il. This is an individual who came and harassed Rasulullah by the name of Al-As ibn Wa'il. He says, oh, you don't have any kids. You only got a daughter, and that's not, sufficient. Allah revealed the following chapter, the shortest chapter of the Quran. We gave him Al-Kawthar, a title of Lady Fatima to Zahra alayhi salam. And indeed, if one were to look at the ta'weel of this, how he would have an abundance in his lineage, because through her, Lady Zahra alayhi salam would carry the lineage of Rasulullah. So at the end of the day, it still goes back to Sayyidah Zahra. فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. And so pray to your Lord and sacrifice towards him or to his cause. إِنَّ شَانِئَكَ هُوَ الْأَبْتَرُ. That your lineage, al-abtariyah, to be one who is infertile, to be one who is cut off, basically, it is your lineage that will be cut off. Oh, Al-As ibn Wa'il. The response comes back from Allah. Now, Al-As ibn Wa'il, he is known to be the father of whom? Amr ibn al-As. Amr ibn al-As, the then companion of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, who then is in animosity, in conflict towards Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. His dad, Amr ibn al-As, a chapter was revealed stating, you will not have any kids. Your lineage is cut off. Okay, so where did Amr come from then? Where did he come from if Allah said you will not have the lineage that will continue, yours will be cut off? For all the terrible, difficult remarks you said about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And there's no shame. We gave him a lot. A lot where? A lot in one daughter. Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam, al-Kawthar. How beautiful is that name? A name that represents resistance, because in this chapter we see Allah giving a reply back. Resistance, representing Zahra alayha salam, representing the abundance, definitely. And altogether representing glad tidings. And this is what had happened, brothers and sisters. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, from that moment on, made it very clear that my daughter is literally the biggest of blessings in my life. No matter how many people would approach this blessing of mine, I would put down until I found a blessing equal in proportion to her, approach her, and was kafu enough for her. So we had multiple people approach Rasulullah and ask for the hand of Sayyidah Zahra. Salamullahi alayha. Abu Bakr was amongst the first. He came to Rasulullah and he says, I want to marry your daughter. Rasulullah said to him, but she's young. She's a bit young. For you, she's young. That was the excuse. Abu Bakr goes back and he goes to Umar ibn al-Khattab and he says to him, I tried to propose and he said, she's a bit young for me. Umar said, no, he didn't just say she's young for you. He just flat out rejected you. He didn't want to. Abu Bakr says, oh, if that's the case, how about you go and you propose if you're so better than me? Go, and he was younger, Umar. He goes and he proposes. Rasul says, no, you're too old for her too. Till eventually Amir al-Mu'mineen approached Rasulullah, and Rasulullah awaited the orders from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As we understand, Rasulullah doesn't act on his own will. وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. We had then the commandment come down, oh Rasulullah, زَوِّجُ النُّورِ مِنَ النُّورِ. Marry the light to the light. And Rasulullah responded back, what's the light and who's the light? Ali min Fatima. And so Sayyidah Zahra and Amir al-Mu'mineen got married, and from them, that covenant of Allah from Surah Al-Kawthar of the abundance from the family of the Holy Prophet was fulfilled. Through them, the lineage of Rasulullah continued, brothers and sisters. And this to us highlights multiple things. that despite the circumstances, despite the overwhelming shame many unfortunately might feel, because many do, many have preferences. It shouldn't be the case we have preferences in regards to what kind of children we want in the future. A blessing is a blessing is a blessing, whether it's a boy or a girl. Accept it for what it is and understand that this was all decreed. A few things are not necessarily decreed for us, are not necessarily within our own free will to go hunt down. A few things were predestined for us, amongst them who your parents will be, who your children will be. So just know for sure that the child you got was a child that Allah gave you. How your child is later in the future, their preferences and all of these things, this is subjective. This is all circumstantial and based on free will ultimately, and your influence as well. But just the fact that you got a child, that alone was sent from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, predestined and preordained. The rest of that is all free will for you. This was a blessing at a time of extreme and intense difficulty to Rasulullah. The society boycotted him. Later on, they were sent to the Shi'b of Abi Talib, the valley, and for 3 years they stayed and no one there to assist except Amir al-Mu'mineen, and whom? Sayyida Khadija. She was described as being the wealthiest lady in all of Arabia. What happened to all of her wealth? Well, yeah, those 3 years when you're stuck in a valley of nothing, there's no plants. Sometimes they resorted to eating the grass, literally. Have you seen the desert plants? How coarse they are. They need to be rigid to withstand the heat and whatnot. They had to literally strive to survive. And some children did die. At night, they would hear the noise of children crying from pain and starvation and thirst. It was through Sayyidah Khadija's money that they survived. And Amir al-Mu'mineen taking that wealth and going and sneaking when it was dark, when no one was able to see anything, and buying from some of the people who did not have a lot of venom in their heart towards the family of the Holy Prophet. Even though the aristocrats and these 40 top leaders signed that no one will help them, and if you were caught, you were executed. But Amir al-Mu'mineen, through the means that was provided from a Sayyidah Khadija, went and provided food and got back with food. And for 3 years, they were in the situation such that Rasulullah made it very clear. لَوْلَا سَيْفُ عَلِي وَمَالُ خَدِيجَةَ. Had it not been for the sword of Ali, later on in the years when they had to defend Islam, and the wealth of Khadija, referencing this moment, this difficult moment, Islam would have perished. And you found that Lady Zahra grew up in that society, where she saw the altruism that her mother displayed, saw the strength and resistance, despite the whole world turning against you, the political stances she holds, the knowledge and wisdom that she disseminates, the beauty that she offers man and womankind all together that transcends time. Until today, we discuss them, her lessons, her moments of wisdom, her supplications, her sermons, and the upbringing she produced from Al-Hasanan, from a Sayyidah Zainab. Truly, none of this can come and be a reality unless you are from a heavenly origin, unless you are one who is a Hawra'ul Insiyya, unless you are Fatimatul Zahra, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayha. And on this day, brothers and sisters, the anniversary of her birth, let us come together and make it clear to our family, because we're all restricted indoors nowadays. There are ways to express our love and passion. I'd like to discuss just a few ways on how to properly celebrate with all of you, and then inshallah we will conclude very soon. Number one, brothers and sisters, even though we are indoors, it's worth it, worth the effort. Clean up the house, clean up your environment, make it clean. Well, by default, it should be already clean. I mean, none of us have not heard an-nadhafatu min al-iman, or all of us have not heard, none of us have not heard of an-nadhafatu min al-iman. Cleanliness is of faith. From your faith, cleanliness is represented by it, brothers and sisters. So one act is to be clean on this day, clean up the home, People do spring cleaning when spring comes. Why not, on a very joyous occasion, make sure, at least, if not the room and spaces where you normally hang out at, clean those up. Make it nice. For a day like this, should definitely be a day associated with purity and cleanliness. That's one. But when you make that happen, make it clear, especially for young children, that we are doing this not because a guest is coming, but because we are happy. We are joyous. Today is a day that the Ahlul Bayt alayhim are happy. Sahib al-Zaman, may Allah hasten his reappearance, is happy on a day like this. I mean, is there no better day to be happy than the day the Imam of your time is joyous and content and tranquil in his blessed heart? Ajrullah ta'ala farajul sharif. So that's one thing we can do. Another thing, brothers and sisters, is a very nice, lovely family time. Whether we gather to eat, whether we gather to listen to something being played on the television, on the life of Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam preferably, or moments of entertainment where we just gather and be joyous, happy. Another thing, brothers and sisters, is dress well. Yes, you're home, you're in your own house. But just this one day, for all my young brothers, those shorts that you're wearing are just the very loose, like tank top that you might be wearing. Teenagers just really, when I'm home, I don't care. I'm home, it's my house. When I go outside, I'll dress. But when I'm home, I want to do it this one day. Just this one day, look the part. Today, dress at least clean clothes that are befitting. We're not saying put on a tie and a suit and sports watch or anything like that. No, but a day like this should be a day where you also dress the part. And this is mustahab. Everything we're discussing is recommended from the traditions of the Holy Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt, to gather family time, to enjoy moments of happiness, to be clean, to dress in a clean manner on a day like this, a day, the birth of Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam. And lastly, it doesn't hurt to gather and remember and learn a thing or two about Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam. And this is something we are all doing right now. So all of us gathered right now, tuning in, maybe we're taking the opportunity to learn, to benefit, to be of those who want to seek something new they probably didn't hear of. This is amongst the greatest things you could do. If all of these other points we can't necessarily do, this is something really good. Another thing, with the advantage of communication and cell phones, media, send. It's your time. Now, if there's a time you want to reconnect with that one cousin who you think is weird and you don't want to talk to, although not knowing what they're going through, now is the time you send them a message. With the love of Sayyidah Zahra, do it. With the love of Fatima to Zahra, send a message. You have that uncle or the aunt or the grandma, years, the poor lady sitting somewhere, either in Iraq, in Parachinar, in Mumbai, somewhere in Canada, somewhere in America. That poor old lady, send her a message for goodness sake. It's not like she doesn't make 1,000 dua for you with your own name, with all her love that she has. Send that lady a message, a voice message, congratulations, grandpa as well, aunties, uncles. Today, I want to send my warm, heartfelt congratulations to you. Oh, let's say grandmother or uncle or son or daughter or cousin, on the birth of Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam. May Allah make us from amongst those who follow her. As simple as that. But use this as an excuse. This should be the excuse. Not when there's an unfortunate event like a Fatiha or a funeral, then is the one time, I'm sorry for your loss. No, use it, a good occasion, to reconnect and kindle your relationship with others. For it was Sayyidah Zahra herself who taught us, Al-Jar thumma ad-Dar. You have to go to the extent of remembering to watch out for your neighbor before your own self. Okay, if the neighbor gets a priority, then what about the family? Silatul Rahim. What about the distant relatives? These are your blood relatives. And how important is Silatul Rahim? A sila comes from the understanding of connection. Wasila or sila, like salah. Salah, the root is sila, to connect. Silatul Rahim, those who share the womb with you, or a womb. So at one point we were all connected to a particular great grandfather. Anyone who's in your family like that, first tier, so your parents, second tier, so your uncles, third tier, your distant relatives, to connect to them, use this day as that excuse. Use it. Indeed, inshallah ta'ala, it will be a blessing upon you and them and will get you closer, elevate your status to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you do it out of the mahabba and love you have for Lady Zahra salamullahi alayha. These are all a few ways to express our happiness and satisfaction, learning a few things, making the environment, tidying it up, making it nice, looking the part as well, gathering, enjoying each other's company, and definitely on top of this, learning and benefiting, connecting to others who have not been spoken to in a long time. These are amongst the greatest things to do, brothers and sisters, today, and helping others out in general. It goes without saying, definitely. If we can assist, now's the time to do so. And giving sadaqah at the same time. Giving to charity, giving to those who are in need, out of the love and wala and mahabba that we all have and share for Sayyidah Zahra. For none gave like her. None had mahabba to her family like she did. None cared about making the environment suitable to her loved ones than Lady Zahra, like Lady Zahra alayhi salam. None made sure that their loved ones and kin were dressed in the best of manners, taken with the best of care, given the best of treatment and love like Lady Zahra alayhi salam. So we want to be on the sunnah of Sayyidah Zahra, for indeed it is the sunnah of Rasulullah. Let us all gather and take these few points to mind. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. I'd like to thank you all once more. Congratulations on this auspicious occasion. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us all with the ziyarah of Sayyidah Zahra, inshaAllah, in this dunya and her shafa'ah in the akhirah. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد.
صلى على محمد ومحمد وعجل فرجهم. Thank you very much, Sayyidina, and inshallah we convey felicitations and greetings to you too. May Allah bless you for the sake of the Lady of Light and grant and increase blessings upon you and your tawfiqat, inshallah, that you continue to
May
serve.
Allah bless you, Brother Taha. Thank you so much. I miss seeing you, Habibi. Inshallah, one day we should gather. What is this, Taha?
Inshallah, indeed, inshallah.
Inshallah, Habibi.
All right, please remember us in your prayers as well, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Inshallah, with this, brothers and sisters, we will conclude today's ihtifal, today's mahfil, by the recitation of Ziyarat al-Waratha, and I'll request my dear young brother, Brother Yusuf Rahman, so to start with this recitation. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله السلام عليك يا وارث نوح النبي الله السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين ولي الله السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى السلام عليك يا ثار الله يا ابن ثاره والوتر الموتور أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وأتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين فلعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سميت بذلك فرازيت به يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأسلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة. لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسك من مدلهم ثيابها. واشهد أنك من دائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين. واشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرزي الزكي الهادي المهدي. واشهد أن الإمام أئمة من ولد كلمة التقوى وعلم الهدى والعروة الوثقى والهجة والهجة على أهل الدنيا. واشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسوله أني بكم مؤمن وبإيابكم موقن بشرائع الدين وخواتيم عملي وقلبي لقبلكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع. صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. السلام عليك يا ابن نبي الله. السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا ابن الحسين الشهيد. السلام عليك أيها الشهيد. السلام عليك أيها المظلوم وابن المظلوم. لعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. زيارة شهداء كربلاء. السلام عليكم يا أولياء الله وأحباءه. السلام عليكم يا أصفياء الله وأبداءه. السلام عليكم يا أنصار دين الله. السلام عليكم يا أنصار رسول الله. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليكم يا أنصار فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي محمد الحسن بن علي الولي الذكي الناصح. السلام السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي عبد الله. بأبي أنتم وأمي طبتم وطابت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم وفزتم فوضا عظيما. فيا ليتني كنت معكم فأفوز معكم. زيارة أبي الفضل عليه السلام. السلام عليك يا أبا الفضل العباس بن أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا ابن سيد الوصيين. السلام عليك يا ابن أول القوم إسلاما وأقدمهم إيمانا وأقومهم بدين الله وأحوطهم على الإسلام. أشهد لقد نصحت لله ولرسوله ولأخيك فنعم الأخ المواسي. فلعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة استحلت منك المحارم وانتهكت حرمة الإسلام. فنعم الصابر المجاهد المحامي الناصر والأخ الدافع عن أخيه المجيب إلى طاعة ربه الراغب فيما زهد فيه غيره من الثواب الجزيل والثناء الجميل. وألحقك الله بدرجة آبائك في جنات النعيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا قائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. With this, brothers and sisters, we conclude today's ihtifal, today's mahfil. May the Almighty envelope you all within His blessings, within His mercy, and inshallah keep you all protected and safe. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi